converted man here. Logical positivism and scientism. Oh, these are going to be fun to cover. Like many philosophical ideas, they're complicated. But with both of these particular philosophies, they try to get things to make sense and to have some sort of coherence to it. They didn't seem to succeed. Maybe they didn't. Maybe the movement died out too soon. Maybe it wasn't expanded. But essentially, the base problem for both seems to come with what I would say is almost a very reductive view. If the statement is you can only know what's true through logical positivism, that itself is not something that you can show to be true with logical positivism. If the statement is you can only know what's true through scientism or through science, then that statement is not something you can verify through science or scientism. These views are, like I said, I think a bit too reductionist. There's other complaints about these philosophies. I'm no expert in philosophy. My claim is I'm an amateur logician. So before I get into this, I thought I would play this music video that covers all of philosophy as sort of a talking point, if you will, because I like it, and and then I can go into the other stuff. So here we go.
School of Rock, yeah!
Asian. We're the first to philosophize. Unorganized Confucian, like Confucius, or the fat giggling Buddhist who said life is suffering. And through the centuries, suffering is all Asians did. But in Greece, intellectual chimpanzees were putting things in order. Thales put his banana down and said everything's water, which is dumb. But to tie it all together is what he tried. It's not water, it's fire, said the nigga Heraclitus. And that's the kind of shit that occupied the Athenasians. Tying everything together, it's called integration. Pythagoras said everything is numbers in a theorem. But there's more to life than numbers, so no one wanted to hear him. Zeno said there's no such thing as change. He got wrecked, but we know he invented the debate, or dialectic. When there was democracy, there was Democritus. He was wrong about some shit, but still they call him dad of science. Does the end justify the means? For Simachus said yeah. But tell that to someone dying for someone else's idea. And that's the fate of Socrates, convicted for corrupting little boys. And for democracy, he drank fucking poison. The boys in Socrates' class were mostly fake and gay though. But the first to build a system of philosophy was Plato. He said this world isn't real, but there's a world of forms where everything is perfect. He was fucking wrong, but they thought he was right, so his work was taught and saved. Ironically, which led the West back into a cave. But he paved the way for his student with the system model. Just the realest nigga ever to exist, Aristotle. He wanted explanation for the shit Plato told him, and he wrote it all down. Pound Plato like a clown. All the bullshit Plato said, Aristotle asked how. His metaphysics still hurts Plato's ass now. Aristotle wasn't perfect, but he gave us laws of logic, which gave us shit like PlayStation 1 and Apple Watches. All the cool shit you got, thank Aristotle's mother, which is more than anybody did back when the words were uttered. Nobody gave a fuck. Yeah, fuck what he was saying. They was busy eating euros, wrestling naked, being gay. Like Epicurus told them, avoid all pain. The Stoics were like, nah, too much pleasure is vain. They said be serious, focus on what you're doing. But they also pushed away the happiness pursuing. And the skeptic, ancient neck, beard, McTow. They said you can't know shit. Wrong then, gay now. As time passed, Plato's influence increased. Philo brought him to the Jews. Enter Christianity. Augustine cemented Plato to the West in written pages. Raising faith over reason, bringing in the Dark Ages. And poor Aristotle, dismissed in his day. No one gave a fuck about his jam. And it was cast away. And his fucking name forgotten by a world that shit on him. Until he was discovered by a Muslim? Al-Mamun translated him from Greek and began a golden era when religion let you think. But reason was rejected by this guy Al-Ghazali, which is probably why Islam today is not too fucking jolly. He decided to try to mix faith and reason was retarded, so he threw the precious work of Aristotle in the garbage. The enlightenment of the Arabs was over and departed, but in Europe Tom Aquinas was like, I'm just getting started. He learned of Aristotle from this Jewish guy Maimonides, and he got it from a Muslim of Averroes. If ever these three religions found common ground, it's in placing reason over faith, living here and now. The sound of reason cut the silence of the Middle Ages, as pages filled with logic scrutinizing God himself. And the changes made some clergy nervous, but it was too late, cause the dumbest shit they ever did was let the artist paint. Human beauty was depicted, love and sex celebrated, life on earth is the standard, heaven could wait and shit. And though Christ was the one being painted, religion didn't know it was being defanged and shit. That was the Renaissance. Then came the Enlightenment. The other Greek philosophers were studied with excitement. Now the truth could be discovered by no other means than reason. Then shit got more divided than the South and North Koreans. A group of new philosophers, one of whom was Locke, said you can't trust your mind, but your senses and your cock know reality, so don't think too much, you little bitch. The philosophers who said this are called empiricists. On the other side of this dichotomy of mind and body, Descartes and all his niggas said your senses could be naughty. You could only trust your mind to know what is and isn't. This school of philosophy is rationalism. That's when philosophy became a shitstorm. Scientists no longer thought philosophy was for them. It didn't help philosophy to spare itself the damage. When Rousseau is talking about how true nobility is savage. Philosophers of body versus philosophers of mind. All misguided, but the truth is that the truth they tried to find. See, they all respected reason. They each wanted to have it. Then Kant said, reason? Reason is a faggot. He modernized Plato's world of forms from before, causing reason and reality itself to go to war. He tried to fix the mind-body split, but only made it bigger, cause reality requires you to reason, my nigga. Now that reality and reason were divorced, everyone had to pick one and fuck whatever cause. Trying to understand the world became a fucking headache. Hegel said reality and logic are synthetic. Marx pushed reason even farther away. In fact, he said reality depends on closer to a factory. If philosophy ended the age of darkness, it was now laying the blueprints for retarded shit. Nietzsche loved power and strength, but it's not reaching or a stretch saying he inspired Nazis. Superman, something that Nietzsche gave us. Too bad he saw people as masters and slaves. Who are free now in America? Land of Thomas Paine, who brought over the Enlightenment from Europe. He explained the right of man is to be free, cause that's his fucking nature. When the Germans came, no one saw the fucking danger. Royce and his boys turned to Hegel for the basics. Dewey said your mind doesn't learn shit, it creates it. Students went to Germany, brought you back and spread it, which is why today's smartest, most retarded shit on Reddit. No reason to reason now that nothing could be known. Pragmatism said take action and follow your emotion. Kids trained to have coherence of a mental patient. This was the birth of progressive education. Integration no longer required. Postmodernism said that your mind could retire. Religion made a comeback. Tribalism too. Cause without reason, there's just feelings and the group. Without philosophy, scientists can't resist Oriental mystics claiming their shit is legit. Recycled anti-rationals repeating the same motion. Alleged men of science invoking their emotions. John Rawls said we all should be the same. Social justice is morality. Philosophy became a game of bullshit and semantics that no one understands and nobody gives a fuck about. Except for Ayn Rand, the last of the Enlightenment. She tied mind and body and reality to reason, which is great, except nobody intellectual would give a fuck. Professors wouldn't budge. They must have their reason, but history will judge.
Oh, I love that rap. Oh, yeah, so good. So, of course, the skeptic, the skeptic dig, of course, hurts a bit. But what they mean, or what he means by skeptic, is not what I mean by skeptic. I don't doubt that you can know things. I don't say that you can't know anything. That's too far for me. I don't think that reality is not real, or that we, even that doubting reality has any sort of merit other than maybe you run the gambit of the thought experiment the one time and that's it. And then you move on from there and reality is real. So I'm not that type of skeptic. But then he brings up the logic, the empiricists, and that's what we're going to be looking a little bit at. Now, again, no, I'm not a philosopher. I don't understand a lot of this stuff, but that of it that I do understand, I think it's worth talking about and exploring. Also in this rap, he talks about reason. How do you reason? What is reason? And this is what essentially philosophers have been trying to gain throughout time, and it seems like at some point they gave up. Like, you know, it's all postmodernist, just everything is nothing and everything's subjective and nothing matters, and nihilism, and you know, you can be whatever you claim to be and you don't have to verify anything. And well, that's insanity. We don't like that, or I don't like that at any rate. All right, so logical empiricism. Oh my word, that's a lot of words we got. So this is the Stanford Encyclopedia, and it has a lot, a lot of the history, and a lot of the problems. I want to focus on the problem, if you will. What they were attempting to do is, it seems to me, have language be that statements had to actually refer to something you could confirm. And so, you know, that you get the synthetic sentences. So, you know, you have to be able to say something that's true, that's verifiable in some way. Otherwise, it's, you know, it just doesn't mean anything. So here's this formulation. Let's see. So the synthetic sentences applied only to principle of confirmation. Confirmation is a feature that applies to sentences or groups of them and to subsentental parts. And for an empiricist, the context of the synthetic sentence would be empirical content, which they could just talk English. They are, you know, okay. So it would have to be empirical context set in the sentence A, so whatever the variable is, should be directly imply some observational sentence, or add the observational context of some other sentence B. So the conjunction of A and B should imply some observational sentence not implied by B alone. The formation may be natural, but it's also fatally flawed, at least according to them. It would declare any sentence whatsoever as meaningful. For any sentence A, observation sentence O, A would be meaningful because it's conjoined to A is O, and the later would not in general imply O, but the conjunction would. Oh, that's not complicated at all. What the hell are they saying? Okay, so either my light is on, and I'm referring to my light, and I'm saying that it's on. So there's the thing that is known, and then I'm referring to the state of it, and so they're conjoined, and so that sentence would be meaningful. But if I said that, you know, maybe something less meaningful, like the light is illuminated, that the word illuminated is less valid than just being on. So you could reject it at that point or something like that, I think. Let me go to the less wordy other page I have pulled up here. Let's see. So Wikipedia, not the best of sources. So a definition might be in order. It's somewhat like, at least it's stereotyped as that you can't talk about unobservable, such as microscopic entities or notions as causality and general principles, but it's an exaggeration. So it's not that. Rather, most neo-positivists view talk of unobservables as metaphorical or elliptical, direct observations phrased abstract or indirectly. So theoretical terms would garner meaning from observational terms, and so, then you get into, you see, here's my guy, Bernard Russell. He liked logicism and tried to work on this, saying that mathematics and, is kind of is logic or a subset of it. And then you could do mathematical formulas converted to symbolic logic. And so Russell had logical axioms. Ordinary language would be discrete units of meaning. Rational reconstruction then would convert ordinary statements into standards equivalents and all networked and united by a logical syntax. The scientific theory would be stated with its method of verification, whereby a logical calculus or empirical observation could verify its falsity or truth. Okay, wow, that's a lot. So what the bleep does all that mean? As far as I understand this, the attempt is being made to turn words and even scientific theses itself into the format of logical symbols, and then to use the formulas that you would use in logic to verify that the theory is sound. And that by doing that, you could then show that it was false or true. So essentially taking language and turning it into a synthetic language, turning it into an artificial language. So for those of you that have stuck with me a while, know that I bring up natural language as a problem that logic alone cannot address. This seems to be an attempt to convert natural language into a synthetic language, in this case, the language of symbolic logic, using a certain methodology that you would do that. And then everything would be just these logical symbols, and you could work out whether or not the argument was sound from those various formulas. Whew. Hope I'm right about all that. Yeah, I could be wrong. Okay, let's see. There's Encyclopedia Britannica. Okay, so that was that. Scientism. Very simple, more straightforward. Scientism's promotion of science as the best or only objective means by which society should determine normative and epistemological values. The term scientism is used critically implying cosmic application of science in unwarranted situations considered not amenable to the application of scientific method or similar scientific standards. Basically what I was saying, where if the statement is I can prove everything by science, but then I can't prove that statement by science, then what good is it? I mean, it failed its own test, so therefore, screw it. Here's a history of scientism and other things that you could, all the links are in the description. And here again, we're talking about the scientific resolution, then the Enlightenment, then positivism, and then logical positivism, however you want to say that, and then scientism of today now. And then this author distinguishes science from scientism, and his conclusion I don't necessarily agree with, but he says that science is, well, I agree with some of it. Science is an activity that seeks to explore the natural world using well-established, clearly delineated methods. Given the complexity of the universe, from very big to very small, from inorganic to organic, there's a vast array of scientific disciplines, each with its own specific techniques. The number of different specializations is constantly increasing, leading to more questions and areas of exploration than ever before. Science expands our understanding rather than limiting it. Scientism, according to this author, is a speculative worldview about the ultimate reality of the universe and its meaning. Despite that there's millions of species on our planet, scientism focuses an inordinate amount of its attention on human behavior and belief, rather than working within carefully construed boundaries and methodologies established by researchers. It broadly generalizes entire fields of academia experience and dismisses of them as inferior. With scientism, you'll regularly hear explanations that rely on words like merely, only, simply, or nothing more than. Scientism restricts human inquiry. Now, above, he gave an example of that. Scientism today is alive and well, and here's some statements. Carl Sagan, the cosmos is all that is or ever was or ever will be. So here is that for him, the primary identifier is all. So he said, below that this is something that you would see. The cosmos isn't all, because you have things in the cosmos, I guess would be his objection. The more universe seems comprehensible, the more it seems pointless. So the more you understand the universe, the more you see it's pointless, and so you're reducing everything to this thing. And so the author rejects that and says that this would be a statement of scientism. And here's one directly aimed at the human species. We can be proud as a species because, having discovered we are alone, we owe the gods very little. So because it's focusing on the humans, that's, in this author's view, scientism. Okay, so I've been accused plenty of times as being a logical positivist or using scientism. Because I ask for empirical evidence, repeatable tests, valid and sound argument. That sounds kind of like logical positivism, but unlike logical positivists, I'm not saying that logic is the only thing that you can use, or that the empirical method is all that you can use, or that the testing is all that you can use, because I'm putting logic in there as well. But what's interesting about both of these is there seems to be this pushback that you can't use logic or science to know everything. You have to be able to use some other methods as well. And that might be the reason that Ruckus Ali was rapping about. Whatever reason is, however abstract that might be. You can do reason in your head. You don't have to go outside to do it, so to speak. And that's kind of the armchair philosopher, if you will, that you can just think about things and try to understand them and tie everything together, integrate it all, and make sense of it all. Because it has meaning. It's not meaningless. It's not nonsense, although there are certainly things that sound philosophical that are nonsense. If you want some great examples of that, just look at the tweets that new peer review puts out, different feminists and other sort of papers in that genre that are just you read them and you go, what is that? New real peer review. Here we go. Let me pull up an example. Okay, here we go. This is great. All right. Okay. So here's an article written. We prohibit violent sexual conduct to prevent the normalization of sexual assault and the non-consensual violence associated with sexual acts. We prohibit gratuitous gore content because research has shown that repeated exposure to violent content online may negatively impact the individual's well-being. So this is Twitter's new guideline reads, for these reasons, you can't share images or videos that depict violent sexual conduct or gratuitous gore on Twitter. One wonders what research they're talking about. And how this isn't just an appeal to potential consequence. Okay, so that wasn't written by a feminist, so that one's kind of actually readable. Yeah, here we go. So here's something written by one of these sort of things about mathematics. So we want to rehumanize mathematics, and then that decolonizes mathematics. What the hell? Decolonize? How can mathematics be colonized in the first place? But see, this is the what's called the critical theory, which is neither critical nor a theory, that mathematics, because a lot of it was brought forth by white men, therefore it's colonized. And so we have to, and then it's all about land and sovereignty and culture. And so, if rehumanizing is decolonizing, how is traditional mathematics colonizing? What question does this bring up for you? Well, my question would be, what the hell are you smoking? So it sounds philosophical, and there's others that this Twitter puts out of here's the latest insanity that's out there, and and it's worth a follow, I think. So that's something to be aware of, because it's objecting to rationalism. It's objecting to attempts to just have math is just math. Who cares who discovered it or invented it or made it famous or whatever? That's just irrelevant. It doesn't matter. The Arabs came up with the abacus. You got the abacus or algebra. Thank you. I couldn't think for a moment. But the Arabs came up with algebra, and then the guy came along and said, "Oh, we need to go back to religion," and so that was it for them. Their whole contribution to science got stifled because of religion in many ways. Religion doesn't have to do that. Bad actors will enable it to do that. So we go back to the question of epistemology. How do we know what's true? And how do we sort that out? And for me, I've said, okay, well, anything that I'm going to think is true or plausibly true, I'm going to need you to give me empirical evidence or repeatable tests or a valid and sound argument. If you can't give me any of those, then what could you possibly hope to give me? What other system do you have, and how does that system work? And you can accuse me of doing logical positivism. By the way, that ended in the 1970s or so. Who knows if we developed it more, if it actually would be a coherent system of philosophy today. I don't know. Maybe it would be. Maybe it wouldn't be. I don't know. But philosophers are all over the map, as that rap covered. And science is the best tool that we've made as far as something that we can see the results of. You know, you're drinking clean water, that's because of science. You're in a house, that's built because of science. You know, your computer, that's because of science. You know, modern medicine, that's science. You know, there isn't, you know, you can't turn anywhere without seeing some artifact of science in the modern world. So why would we ever discard it in favor of something that doesn't work quite as well? Just because it's restrictive? Of course, you could get around the problem of the complaint about scientism. You could say, well, except for this sentence, everything has to be proven by science. What couldn't be proven by science? Because you have archaeology, you have forensic science, you have the study of history. There's a scientific method that you can employ there, and there's certainly a category distinction. You know, what do we consider myth, and why we consider certain work myth rather than as non-myth? Any you know, the classification of these writings that we have, and the claims that people make. So it might be inconsistent or what have you. These particular philosophies of logic, positivism, and scientism, or it might be that we need to tie reason into them and find a way to make them better, or it might be that there is some other greater system that we could develop and work on that would be even more robust than anything that we've had before. I don't know that I'm using these systems. I don't think that I am, by requiring my, three things. Am I doing logical positivism or scientism by saying empirical evidence, repeatable tests? That's something that you could say that's science or scientism. And then I say, well, or a valid and sound argument. And then you say, well, that's logical positivism. If I only required that, then yeah, so I'm doing both because I require all three or one of the three. But what else is there? And I've asked this question many, many, many times. What other thing is out there to let me or anyone else know that something is true? If you're not going to give me a valid argument or a sound argument, you're not going to give me a valid and sound argument, you're not going to give me evidence at all, not any evidence that I can verify at any rate, Not going to give me any way to test it. So then how would I know it's true? How would I ever know? Nobody has given me a fourth option. Right. Yeah. The positivists. Right. Yeah. I think that's where they might have gone a bit far with it. You really would have to, I think maybe Russell was on kind of the right track from my brief reading of all, because I read through all these things before I went live with this, because obviously I'm not a philosopher. I don't study these things. I study logic by itself. That's the only subset of philosophy I'm really into. And so you might have heard me say, I don't care what the philosophers have to say. Well, that's a bit far. What I meant is that what matters is not who said whatever, but whether what they said is true or not. So you can quote any given person, and it doesn't really matter if they're a philosopher or not to me. What matters is if what they said is true or not. And if you're just saying, well, they agree with my position, well, la-di-da, I could probably find people that agree with mine. And then what are we going to do? Just find people that agree with mine and agree with yours until one of us has more? That's not logical. So what would be the point of it? Argument has to stand or fall on its own merits. What is known, what we observe yet don't understand, what theory predicts is there yet wasn't discovered yet, what is knowable, what is unknowable. Yeah. I think that's another way to look at things, Now, I don't know if we would ever know what is unknowable. Like, hey, this is unknowable. How do you know that that's unknowable? Unless you're talking about like a solution to a paradox or something like that, and then it's unknowable by virtue of the fact that paradoxes are not solvable or something like that. So I don't know if I covered this. I probably didn't to write. I know John Buck probably could do better on this than I could, and others have covered these subjects far better than I ever could. But the next time somebody accuses me of being a logical positivist or a scientism or doing scientism, I guess I could just refer back to this video and say, okay, well, here's my 3 things. If I'm doing that, okay, maybe I am. I don't know. But what else do you got? Rather than just say, well, this and this person also think that we don't need to have empirical methods. Okay, great. What system do they offer that instead? Why is it no one can give me that? And instead of just saying, well, we're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do this other thing. Okay, great. What are we going to do then? Reason requires us to be able to reason. No. Well, maybe. Depends what theology happened to be true. If I was presented a valid and sound argument for any particular God, I would promote that God existed. I would say, here's the argument for that God. Here's how we know it works. Here it is. I would try to make it better if possible. And I would share that argument and spread it around and tell everyone about it. But I might not join the group that it belonged to. And I had a video or something. I don't know if it was a whole video or not, but I had this. I said it in some talk or whatever. Who knows? But if it turned out, to reverse the question on John Buck, if it turned out that Hitler, who we all, nobody likes Hitler, maybe his mom did at one point, I don't know. But, if it turned out that Hitler was the actual God of this reality, and we had it, doesn't matter what, we had every single bit of evidence that there was for it. Would you worship Hitler? Yes or no? If you say no, then you're in my camp. I would not worship it, ever. I would not join it. Doesn't matter what it's going to do to me, because I object morally to it, and my morals are more important than its demands of me. So if it turned out that the sort of God that was really real was one that I didn't agree with its morality, I couldn't just force myself to give up my morals in order to join its side, its team. So, you know, if we replace this and said, you know, John, if Hitler is God, would you be a Hitlerist? And what would your answer be to that? Maybe you could do. Doesn't matter if it doesn't sound like God. You know, if that's what it, you know, don't miss the thought experiment in the details. You know, the question is, if it turned out that this was true, would you worship it? Would you follow it? Would you become part of its religion that it had? That's the question. So that's, I think, it for this particular topic. Again, you know, I you can read up on it, and you might understand it better than I did. And, you know, feel free to correct me about any of my ideas of what logical positivism and scientism is, and don't tell me that I can't pronounce them, because I know I can't. I'll answer John's question about Hitler God. Part of God's plan was to kill himself. He didn't fail. That was that. The whole thing was, you know, that was all part of the plan. You can't question God's plans. It's God. It has a reason for everything that it did, and we don't know that reason. So let's just appeal to the mystery. You know, I mean, you could do that, but it's silly. I'm not saying that. You know, I'm just, the thought experiment is there to elicit us to think about, if it turned out that the God that was real was evil and vile and despicable to yourself, to you as a human, would you discard your own morality in order to worship it? I would not. I would say it's true. I would support that it's true, but I wouldn't join it. I wouldn't be a Christian even if it turned out that Yahweh happened to be real. Or a Jew. Or a Muslim. No, Hitler is God, and he's not dead. That's the thing. Like, he died in a physical form, okay? Like, you know, like you're it's like Jesus was a human and died and went back into heaven or whatever, right? Jesus is still God, right? So we're just pretending here for this thought experiment that Hitler, it turns out that he was God and he is God, and that person that killed all these people and did all these terrible things on earth, that's the God that exists. And there's been arguments, say, for the evil God. You can reductio ad absurdum the arguments of why there's evil that many theists do. You know, it's like, oh, well, we'll say, you know, the evil that's here is permitted, you know, because of free will. But you could posit an evil God and say the true God is this evil, all evil God that is always evil and wants evil everywhere. And the good that we see is only there because free will is necessary for God to be able to make evil, you know, happen more often or something like this. Let me see if I can pull up that. Let's see. Can't remember. No, it's problem of evil. Reducto. Where is it? Yeah, so, okay. I'm trying to find the reductor of it, but I can't. Well, at any rate, I'll find that some other time. But essentially, you take the problem of evil and you just you do it in backwards. You just replace good with bad. So let's say what. So you know, let's see. We've seen the so here's one version of the problem of evil. That there's an omnipotent, omnibenevolent, omniscient God. Then there wouldn't be evil, but there is evil, therefore it doesn't exist. But that the reason there is evil is because of some excuse, and whatever that excuse is, different philosophers have tried different, ways a way out of the problem of evil. But you could just reformat this and just say an omnipotent, what would be non-benevolent? What would be the opposite of benevolent? Opposite. Oh, geez. Benevolent. There we go. Unkind, time-fisted. Okay, so unkind, unkind God exists, and then even though we see good, it's just there's reasons, and the reasons are mystery or whatever. Anyways, not important. Malevolent. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, right, exactly. So if the question is if God was immoral and unworthy of worship, yeah, you wouldn't worship him. Right, exactly. So the answer to your question above is that, yeah, I would say it's true because the truth matters to me. I want to know what's true. I don't know that I know what's true. I know the few things I think are true, but there's many more things that I'm not sure about, and that's why I have the label skeptic. Is of course, I have nuances to that label that may or may not actually be that word has to it. But nonetheless, if the label becomes useless, I don't mind dropping it, because in the end, that's less important to me than the arguments. So, yeah, I think that's it. That's all I got for you. Thanks for joining me, and hopefully this will cause some thoughts and such in the comments. Thanks for the chats and your ideas. I welcome them, and look forward to, if you have a video on this that you want me to see or something to read about it, you go ahead and email me it or Twitter it to me. You can put it on YouTube. It might be marked as spam. I might see it, but I might not. But so because links sometimes get hidden. So if you want to put a link, say under this response is a link, and then respond to your own comment with whatever the link is. So I'll be sure to see it that way. All right. Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes. There, yeah, let's end it that way. Finn. I'll find that argument for Buck. You send it to him. All right, later.